What is good and what is up, y'all? It's your boy here, Jay, back and better than ever with another episode of Jay's Point After. This is long overdue, y'all. It's not a Padres banter episode, not a Thunder banter episode, or Chargers banter. This is officially the Jay's Point After episode, and it's been a minute, y'all. It's been a while since we have last talked, and so instead of catching up and trying to, rally back from all the missed days, I think that we should start in present day and try to keep the ball rolling from here as today is the start of a new strategy and to talk more about topics and actually dissecting, you know, some not the game analysis, but more so, just topics and things that we could talk about around the league. And in this case, we're going to be talking about all things NBA as the NBA playoffs are here. And in this edition of Jay's Point After, it'll be a special edition as we'll be diving into, like I said, all things NBA. But not only that, we will be joined by our first special guest on the podcast here, Jaden. One of my best friends from college knows all things ball when it comes to basketball, and I can't wait to kind of just bounce ideas and kind of get into arguments or whatever the case may be about some topics that we're going to go ahead and dissect into here, and it's going to be exciting. And finally, getting somebody on to the podcast. It's long overdue, y'all. Not only long overdue in this section of the podcast, but also, being able to get somebody on and to talk sports with me. So it's not just me rambling about some nonsense that, you guys probably don't agree with. But at the end of the day, the playoff time is here, baby. And it is 2026 season is officially over with the conclusion of the games on Sunday night. Finally, those games are over and playoff time is here. And I think that to be honest, it's good for the NBA to finally have these playoff games after the long season of just craziness. I think, to be honest, whether it's between Chauncey Billups to the start of the season, or the end of the season, the expansion of two more NBA teams. There's been a lot this NBA season has brought to the table, not to mention new NBA playoff teams this season between the Hornets and the Heat, and the Blazers and the Suns are going to be kicking it off on Tuesday with the play in on Tuesday. So I'm excited, guys. But without further ado, I'm going to stop talking and get into my guy right here, Jaden. Go ahead and introduce yourself, brother, and welcome to the podcast, man.
Hi guys, my name is Jaden Swinger. Thank you, Jalen, for having me on the podcast. I'm really good friends with Jalen from college. I'm a huge sports fan, huge NBA fan, and I can't wait to debate and discuss all these topics with Jalen and really, you know, just beat him in all these arguments. So
Let's slow down here. Let's slow down here. No, I'm kidding, man. He's ball knowledge is crazy, and we always used to talk back and forth in college about not just basketball but many other things, because obviously our basketball team was pretty good at Nevada, but all other sports pretty lackluster if you ask me. But
yeah,
either way, we always used to just get into little debates about certain topics between not only just us two but a couple others that aren't here that hopefully one day we can get onto the podcast between Andrew and Dawson, but that would be cool.
yeah.
But like I said, long story short, let's get into what we came here for, and that is the NBA playoffs and NBA talk, guys. Tons of possibilities for new I guess matchups going down the road, guys, between the Eastern Conference Finals. Who's going to come out of the East? Obviously, the Pistons are favored, but there's tons of possibilities of other teams coming out of the East as well as the Western Conference. There's a lot of uproar about what the Spurs have been doing this season, and obviously the Oklahoma City Thunder third straight year as a number one seed in the West, but there's been a lot of chatter about what the Spurs have been able to do, especially having their success against the Oklahoma City Thunder in the regular season. So it's going to be an exciting playoffs, but obviously the play in has to play out in order for us to get to the matchups that we want to get to. But like I said, I think it's good that the playoffs are finally here, like I said, because the NBA has been through a lot this year, and I think it's been banged up, and I think good basketball is always going to just, I guess, suffice for everything, right? And make everything better. So hopefully that turns out to be the case. But on Tuesday, guys, the play-in starts, so I'm excited. Let's get into the first matchups, Jay. So what do we got between the Wolves and Nuggets? It's going to be a hard matchup for the Wolves, I think, personally, to go ahead and top the Nuggets. But at the end of the day, this is a solid group, and they got Ant Edwards back. And on top of that, rumor is that he is going to be 100% and obviously no limits to him in his minutes. So, what do you got here, Jay? Is there anything that you feel like the Nuggets um, or should be scared of between the T-Wolves? Obviously, the T-Wolves have been to the Western Conference Finals in years past, but is there anything that you think that can top the Joker in this series right now?
You know, I just don't really see the T-Wolves winning this series. I think it's a good matchup for the Nuggets actually with, Jokic is a huge mismatch against Gobert. Gobert just, can't guard the perimeter. And, I just think that Denver has a lot of depth this year. They really, fixed up their bench over the offseason. Peyton Watson's been good. They got Cam Johnson in that Michael Porter trade. Their bench is better than it's been, in a while. So I think that I really think that the Nuggets are going to win this series.
I do agree there. They really shored up their bench after last season when they had to go 7 games with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think that really kind of opened their eyes and what they needed to do in the offseason and shoring up, not just having Aaron Gordon and the big three that they got with Jamal Murray being the first time All-Star this year. No, it's going to be interesting to see, especially with his great season that he had on top of the Joker having another MVP caliber season in the conversation again, having another triple double esque season. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm agreeing with you there, but I'm worried more so because of the big play mentality and the big play splashes that come from Anthony Edwards. Do you think that they can go ahead and snag a couple games? Because it is only a 5 game series.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that Ant and Julius Randle they're going to get theirs right. I think that those two are going to score. I think that we need to see DiVincenzo's got to hit threes. We got to see Nas Reed step up off the bench. I think that we need some of this secondary scoring from these guys in order to really win this series because I think that no matter what, I mean Ant's going to probably drop 25 a game, whatever
Yeah,
how he is. But
yeah.
I really think that the guys like DiVincenzo and Nas Reed really got to step up.
And I'm an Ant Edwards fan. I think that he's a top 5 player in the league when he can play the entire season. If he can be able to put a season like that under his belt, but a ton of the splashes and I think that it's because of the injuries that it's kind of held him back to the question marks. But when he gets into the playoffs, it's all hell break loose and he gets your team to the Western Conference Finals. I think personally he needs that 1B. I don't know if you think that as well. But I think he needs that 1B in order for him to get over that hump because there are teams like the Thunder or the Nuggets who have an insane amount of depth that really the Timberwolves don't necessarily have. But I do think that the Timberwolves can be a top 3 team if they can shore up that depth, not to mention, having at least a bona fide 1B. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Randall's been pretty good this year. I just don't really trust him as a 1B, right? Like I think he's more of a two, not necessarily 1B. I think that they do need to, try to find more scoring. I really like that they got Desumu from the Bulls. That
That
was a
was a
really
good
good move
trade.
at the
That was a good
deadline.
trade.
Um, so I mean that really improved their team. But hopefully Ant's healthy. If he is, I mean, you never know. I mean, he could just take over those games. He really could. I
Yeah.
mean, he could just drop 40 and win 3 of those games. But I just don't really see that happening. Is the
Yeah.
thing. So
And on the Nuggets side of this spectrum, I think that, they really do have to limit as much as they can with the production of Ant Edwards. But like you said, the depth of the Nuggets, I think that they can make another good run. But it's going to be tough. They're going to be facing a solid Spurs squad most likely in the second round, and who knows what that matchup's going to bring to the table, right? But let's get on to the next matchup between the Lakers and the Rockets. And I think this personally is a really pivotal matchup, in the sense of not only you got KD and LeBron, which I personally can't remember the last time we seen. What was that? When they were on the Warriors and what was that Warriors and Cavs that last time they scored off in the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so, right?
That's pretty crazy. So, I mean, there's some history here, obviously, but if the Lakers can manage to pull off this series win and get through, obviously they're going to be facing the Oklahoma City Thunder, but getting Luca back and getting AR back, I mean, who knows? They've been playing some great basketball. What they were able to do at the back end of the season and that win streak, and also be able to, kind of flip the script. A lot of people weren't really thinking that this was a roster built to be able to compete in the Western Conference, and then all of a sudden they just start rattling off a series of wins, and LeBron James is absolutely going berserk at age 41. So that's my thing is that if the Lakers can manage to pull off, and this is going to be a tough ask, obviously, because the Rockets are a solid squad. They came in last year with the number 2 seed, right? And then obviously ran into the Thunder, and the Thunder are obviously the Thunder. But the Rockets, they got some vengeance, and they obviously want to come in and have a taste of what they missed out on last year. And now adding KD to that, what do you think? I mean, it could be an opportunity for both teams, because I think the Rockets really want to get into the next round to be able to play the Thunder, if you ask me. But it's going to be interesting because obviously LeBron James the entire year and now into the playoffs has you know been going pretty crazy. But what do you think about this matchup right here?
Yeah, I think it's really unfortunate that Luca and AR, got hurt when they both did because at that point, they had won a ton of games in like the last 20 games or so. Like they had won like 15 of those games, and they were really looking like a serious threat to both, like to everyone really in the Western Conference. But with those guys being out for this series, I think that the Rockets just have more depth than the Lakers do. I mean, like if we actually have Bronny playing playoff minutes, like that's not a good thing. But
That's true.
like
I mean, no
the
disrespect, but yeah,
Rockets though they also do have their own flaws. They're not a great 3-point shooting team. Reed Shepard has actually been really good recently.
yeah,
I'm a huge
he's
Reed Shepard
been
fan.
electric. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean I think that are they getting Van Vliet back or not? No,
I didn't see about that. Let me double check here. I can check.
running a lot of
I
point,
don't.
but
It says
he's
they're
more of
probably
like
most
a
likely not gonna get him back.
yeah, like they have a lot of Amen running the point or Katie bringing the
Mhm,
ball up. It's just
mhm.
those guys are kind of out of position. Amen's more of like a slasher, athletic, wing kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um, and I do love. I think Amen is really like I love Amen. I think he's going to be great eventually. He needs to improve his jumper a little bit more,
yep.
but
And
I
I
think
think,
that the Rockets just have too much
yeah,
against the Lakers
I
without
could
Luca
I
and
can agree, but
AR.
I think the one thing that scares me the most about this matchup in particular is that both of these teams run a lot of ISO ball. And so they can get very stagnant, and with that it can become a 50-50 series at that point in time. I've seen times where the Rockets have been extremely stagnant, obviously not as of late because they've been playing really good basketball. I've seen a lot of great passing going on. Obviously Reed Shepard has been kind of the oriented around that, and been a very good spark plug off the bench to be able to start facilitating in that sense, right? But there's at times where Sengun is kind of isolated doing his thing, and then eventually KD is becoming cold. KD gets the ball and not being able to shoot well, and then obviously you see the frustration and Sengun's taking the last minute shot because he has, more shot attempts than think KD has, because obviously, you get what I'm saying. So I think that at that point, that's the only concern I have for me with the Rockets is that if you get late in the game with the Rockets, they are gonna have a Sir Thompson as a defensive presence, and I think that that's you know a big pivotal piece because to be honest, I think right now with the Lakers lack is defensive presence right now, in the sense of like their win streak. They've been scoring the crap out of the basketball, but it's obvious that if they can't score, they also won't be defending unless LeBron James is going to be blocking for age 41. You know what I'm saying? So like
Yeah,
he's really been their best defensive player this entire year, which is crazy to even say. Um, but at the end of the day, I think you get my point. It can become really anybody's series at some point in time, unless you're going to have a complete takeover by KD, and hopefully
yeah,
Sengun doesn't get in the way of that. But you obviously seen the frustrations throughout the season about Sengun and KD, and so I'm with you. I think the Rockets have too much. I think that I was really hoping that the Lakers would be able to be fully healthy going into the
yeah.
playoffs, but
I do think that JJ Redick is actually a really good coach. Like they run some great offensive sets. I think that he's just a really good coach. It's really going to depend on DeAndre Ayton. I'm not a huge believer in him, but he's really going to have to step up if they're going to win
true.
in this series.
And offensively as well. I think obviously he's
Yeah,
been doing a decent job this year on the boards and blocking, and and whatnot. And but yeah, no, you're right. And catching the basketball has been an issue for him, it seems like. And
Yeah.
it's not just this year; it's been an issue for a while. But it just seems that hopefully that doesn't come up as rearing its ugly head in the playoffs. But the Rockets are a good defensive team, and so this is going to be a tough ask for a 41-year-old LeBron with his son who has barely any minutes in the league,
Yeah.
coming off the bench. And I don't think that realistically, I don't think that the JJ Redick would be giving him any minutes, but we'll see. I mean, I've seen crazier things happen. I've seen crazier things happen. But let's get into the Spurs, as they will be waiting to see who they will be playing, and also they couldn't avoid the Nuggets in the first two rounds, which was kind of funny to see, as they were trying to obviously avoid them and make it an easy route to the Western Conference Finals. But they, did you see that De'Aaron Fox missed like three straight threes in the corner to put him in? But it's all right. I think the Spurs are going to be a formidable opponent to anybody that comes, into their arena. But obviously, that's probably a lot of people's favorite. Is it your favorite as well to take the Western Conference this year?
Yeah, I'm very high on the Spurs. I think that they're the toughest matchup for sure for OKC. Like, and they played OKC well in the regular season, and I think that they can really match up depth wise. I think that both teams, like those are the two deepest teams in the NBA, in my opinion. So I think that, I really do think that the Spurs are going to beat the Thunder to go to the finals.
There we go. That's honestly not the craziest take. I mean, we'll get more into it about after we cover the East, but and what the Thunder need to do in order to get to back-to-back championships. But honestly, as a Thunder fan, I mean, I'm not 100% opposed to that, in the sense of, like, I see through. I try not to be too, biased in the opinions that I have, but it's honest. I mean, if I can be completely transparent, the Spurs do scare us the most, and they are the team that I feel like could match up, or do match up the best against us. And yeah, I think the regular season spoke for itself, but obviously injuries come into play, but that's no excuse whatsoever, especially coming into the playoffs. We do have a fully loaded roster, but at the end of the day, how healthy is Dub gonna be at that point in time, and how he's been playing great basketball, but obviously playoff basketball with only 20, 30 games under your belt, that's a different monster. And hopefully it kind of doesn't necessarily paint that, it's not like painted in his mind that way. It's more so like, oh, I'm fresh, I can just get into like some basketball, and like hopefully he doesn't have to knock any rust off, which I already think he has. But like I said, we'll get into that after we
Yeah.
start breaking down into the East, as the Cavs and Raptors are going to be the first matchup we're going to be breaking down here in the Eastern Conference. I think this is an interesting matchup, but obviously the Raptors are back into the playoffs, and the Cavs have, I think, a lot to do this postseason. They have a lot to do, a lot of things, a lot of pieces they have to pick up from the years past, and a lot of things that I think that they need to accomplish. And so I think that there's an agenda, and hopefully that they can be able to get through with that. But I'm not sure, guys. The Cavs have been absolutely lackluster in the playoffs. They'll be electric throughout the regular season, have the one of the best regular seasons of Cavs history, and then get into the first round. It doesn't even seem like they're playing basketball the way that they were playing the entire season. But who do you like in this matchup between the Cavs and Raptors?
I think that the Raptors are actually one of the most underrated teams in the league. They have, they have some talent for sure with Quickly and Barrett and Scotty Barnes, all those guys. But I think that the Cavs, I think that trading Darius Garland for Harden really signaled that they want to go in all in for this year. I feel like because Garland's like 10 years younger than him, they could have definitely kept him around.
100%.
So, like, I think that they're really trying to go all in for this year, but I'm not necessarily sure that they're. I think they'll beat the Raptors. I don't know if they'll advance past that, but I do think that the Cavs have enough with Harden and Mitchell and Allen and
And I
Mobley
won't
to.
put it past you if I see the Raptors go ahead and beat the Cavs, simply because of the fact of what the Cavs have done in the history of their franchise, and Not
Yeah.
their franchise, but the past couple of years in the playoffs. Not to mention, I mean, Harden isn't the greatest playoff player, and we all know that. And I think that that comes into play as well. They're going to be reliant on Harden to score some buckets, and that's when the playoff Harden that I'm talking about comes into play, right? He's not going to be able to get you the buckets and be able to win you those ball games. And I'm not saying that as a hater of Harden. That's just the fact, right? That has happened in continuous year after year after year after year, no matter where he goes. I think that it would, like I said, wouldn't put it past you that the Raptors go out and beat this Cavs team. But at the end of the day, I think that the Cavs team can win this series and move on to the next series. Will they be able to beat the Knicks or even the Celtics? I don't think so. But that's just my perspective and what I feel like about the rap. Now the Raptors, I think, are the one of the best up and coming teams, right behind the Hawks and the Wizards. If you want, as far as Eastern Conference goes, obviously the Hornets they're up and coming, but I think that they've already emerged in that sense because they've made the play in, right? These other teams that people are like kind of don't really know anything about, right? Obviously the Hawks are in the playoffs, but I think that nobody really understands like how underrated the Hawks are and what they got going from them, especially um, with the Raptors as well and their roster, what they got going for them. So, like I said, I wouldn't put it past you if the Raptors come out and win, but to your point, I don't know if they will
You
because
know, I think that the winner of game one is going to win that series. It's in Cleveland, and I feel
yeah,
like if Toronto is able to win that game in Cleveland and
it's
take
a tough
control of the
place to
series, I
play. It's a
think
very
it'll
tough
probably
place
be
to play.
yeah, yeah. I just think that you know, yeah, obviously the history of Cleveland without LeBron is not great in the playoffs. So if they actually lose that first game at home, I think that the Raptors will take the series. But I
Yeah.
do think that the Cavs will win that game and
Yeah.
take the series. But
And did you see
I could see
did you
Toronto do
see
it.
Drake's seats? They're like ice cold.
Oh yeah,
Dude, what?
yeah,
He's ridiculous. But
yeah,
it's gonna be an interesting series. The Raptors haven't been what it's been a couple years since the Raptors been in the playoffs, right? Or has it been a year?
yeah. I
Um,
think it's been a couple, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
So now on to the Knicks and Hawks. This is an interesting series. I don't think that the Hawks will, overcome the Knicks, but I think that they will absolutely give the Knicks a test, especially since the Knicks have looked so here and there all season long. I got the Knicks in this series. I don't know who you got, Jay, but honestly, Jalen Brunson and the crew are gonna do the job, but I'm not sold on what they have going this season. It's been really kind of lackluster in my estimation from what I expected after last season's, finish. Um, it should have been better, and they know it. Um, they most likely should have been in the finals. But that's
right.
neither here nor there because now they're sitting in the third seed and facing a solid young Hawk squad, and then going to have to go probably through, you know, uh, Detroit, and that's going to be a tough ask. So who do you got in this series?
I think that the series is going to go the whole length. I think it's going to go all 5 games, but I think that the Knicks are going to pull it out in the final game at home. Um, but I think it's going to be a great series. I think that the Hawks can compete with the Knicks, and the Hawks, have been one of the hottest teams in basketball ever since really they traded Trey Young is the thing.
True.
Like that trade, everyone was kind of shitting on that trade because they didn't really get anything back. But like they
Mhm.
got McCollum. McCollum's been good since he got there, and it really getting rid of Trey Young really unleashed Jalen Johnson a lot more too. And with Jalen Johnson being the leader, I think that they got Kuminga. Kuminga at the deadline was a good get too. I mean, he's
Yeah.
a really good scorer off the bench. If only Reese Shea was good, but he's not. So yeah,
And I apologize to all my Celtics fans. They're gonna actually have to go through the Knicks first before they even, sniff the Pistons, and if they want to sniff the Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals. But I think, the Celtics would even be a tough ask for the Knicks too. I think that to be honest, it's just been to me, um, what I've expected the Knicks to be hasn't been there all season long, right? And I think it's become part of the fact that, Karl Anthony Towns hasn't been as aggressive as I think that he should have been all season long. I think that Jalen Brunson has carried this offensive load for this team this entire season, and it really has felt like this for 2 seasons. It feels like the Jalen Brunson show. I think that currently, like Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges haven't really taken up the offensive load as much as I feel like they should, especially after giving up so much. What was it, four first round picks to get Mikal Bridges, and you're
Yeah,
getting
that was
this,
just a bad trade.
and there's just a ton of things right surrounding this Knicks team, and I feel like it's tough, right? I feel personally like they have a solid core, but it's just the fact that, there's so much nuance going around. And not to mention that the fact that they're in New York, right? I think that they can be able to win this series, but it's going to be a tough ask, especially the way that the Celtics have been playing to be able to win that next series. I mean, I'm not sure that you could be able to top that Celtics team getting Jason Tatum back into the fold. I don't remember having seen a team get a MVP. Now, slow down. Obviously, he's not right this year or any. I'm not saying that he's up there right now, but I'm saying getting a team's MVP back into the fold that late in the season. I don't think I recall seeing that happening. That impactful because of the fact that they get a dude like Jason Tatum back. Jalen Brown was really it was the Jalen Brown show, and I think he was doing a fantastic job carrying the load. But getting somebody like him with, you know, thing one and thing two back, like it's tough. It's gonna be tough for the Knicks to be able to top that. But I think that they'll win this series over the Hawks. I think the Hawks are a great up and coming team, and they're about a year or two out from really contending for the Eastern Conference. Whether it becomes from Dyson Daniels or Russ Share, what you were talking about. Um, I think that they will probably move him, but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Um,
If only they would have taken Stephon Castle.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's get into the Celtics and Pistons, or sorry, Celtics and Pistons. Sorry, we'll wait and see their matchups between the Hornets, Heat, Sixers, and Magic. There's a ton of matchup that can go on. I think that between the Celtics and Pistons, but I'm excited to see um, if the Hornets can get in and make some noise. Because obviously, Lamelo's been playing great as of late, and I'm just excited to see about that. And we'll see what the Magic can do because they were really good last year and had a really good seed last year. And I feel like now they're in the play-in. I don't think it was a down year by any means, but they just need some more experience, I think, in the playoffs. And I think that playing in the play-in and working themselves in will be a little bit of a jolt. Who knows, right? But who are some now that we've gone through, all the matchups? Who are some, key matchups or player matchups, or what catches your eye the most this entire playoffs? Or who's some sleepers that you got for us?
I think that well, first of all, I think that Philly was going to be one of my sleepers, but losing Embiid really hurts. If he was healthy, I really like that Sixers team. But without him, I mean, I think that they lose to Orlando and and then Charlotte. Um, I really like the Charlotte team ever since they put Diabate in as their center. Like they've
Hmm.
just
Yeah,
skyrocketed.
honestly, they've been
And like, I'm a huge Brandon Miller guy, and LaMelo is very childish, but he's kind of matured a little bit this year. And then Con Knipple has definitely like that guy has just
yeah,
turned that entire team around. And I mean, I just
rookie
like
of the
they,
year almost.
yeah, like Charlotte would be my sleeper
Cooper Flag rookie of the year. Sorry.
if they didn't have to play Boston or Detroit. Like I think they could beat any other team in the East besides those two, but I don't think they're going to beat those two teams. I think that the Eastern Conference Finals is just going to be Boston versus Detroit, and I'll take Boston to win that in like six or
Okay.
seven and go to the finals. Just because
Okay.
I Boston got Tatum back. Boston's been there before. It's relatively the same team, and acquiring Vucevic at the deadline for Anthony Simons was a good
True.
move for them. Simons wasn't a good fit on that team, so I really like they're kind of putting Vucevic into that Porzingis role,
Hmm.
which is I think a good fit for them. So I think that Boston comes out of the East.
I love that. I love those sleepers. I love those, you know, keep your eye on out for what Jay is saying there. Because honestly, that's good ball knowledge right there. I think that honestly the Celtics could, and it wouldn't surprise anybody if they made, the entire run. Obviously, the Pistons are the number one seed, but the Celtics have been there and done that, like you have said. But let's get into some other topics, before we round out this episode, and not to mention, how Oklahoma City will repeat. But let's get into the fact that Luka Doncic will be back from Europe on Tuesday, and will be back. After this first series. So that's great news there. Both AR and Luca receiving treatment in Europe for their respective injuries. Luca, a hamstring, AR, a grade 2 oblique strain. Both vital pieces are going to be needed for this Lakers team in order for them to win this series and even then go and contend for the next series. But like I said, what do you expect from this Lakers team? Just a quick little tangent, but is it going to be a Braun takeover at age 41, or will KD take down the King in the first round with Sengun and company? Will KD be giving up the last shot? So there's just a lot. But what quick little tangent? What do you think we can expect from this Lakers team in this series?
I mean, I would expect them to perform better than you think, like than people are going to give them credit for, like people think they will. I think that they still have some, shooting. Like I think Laravia can shoot, Kennard can shoot, Rui can shoot. I think that LeBron is definitely going to have to score, 30 points in some of these games, but he's still a great passer as well. He can get if they can get guys open, if JJ Redick can scheme guys open, I think they can hit some threes
Hmm.
and win a game or two in the series. But I think that the Rockets ultimately pull it out with KD down the
Yeah.
stretch taking over, and Sengun and Thompson as well.
I'm just trying to see stars. I'm just trying to see
Yeah,
stars in the game because Curry is going to be back, but it's going to be in an immediate minutes restriction. So that's obviously a bummer to see. There's going to be minutes restriction. It's honestly giving me the vibes that they don't even want to have him in for the playoffs or even want to win or get to the playoffs. Is that kind of the vibe that you're getting there too as well?
yeah, it is. I mean, if I was the Warriors, I would want to try to get as high of a pick as possible. Like their roster is just not good enough,
Yeah.
even
I mean, their future right
With
now, we
Curry
got
playing.
Pod,
Yeah.
Santos, Porzingis, Green, Curry as it stands right now is really the core. Not to mention, obviously, Gary Payton, and I don't know what the contract situations are with those guys. But giving up Kaminga, I mean, I hope that they would get a better draft pick and be oriented in trying to build for the future, right? So, but
Yeah.
yeah, it
I mean,
just
I didn't really like that Porzingis move for them. Just like, Jimmy Butler got hurt, that was a huge loss for them.
Jimmy
And
will be back. Yeah.
yeah, but like Porzingis, it's just he's not really a needle mover right now. Like they're still not going to win even if he's playing really well. So I don't like that move for them.
Yeah.
And their future, like we're talking about their future, it's like Curry, Porzingis, Green, Gary Payton. Those guys are all in their 30s. They're all pretty old. Like besides Pods and B Santos, and Moses Moody, whatever. Like
I mean,
I
Moody
don't
is
really want to.
probably on the back end of like the you know,
Yeah,
being, a building piece, but
you
you're
know,
right. I agree.
I I just want to say this: if the Warriors somehow were to end up with the first overall pick, the lottery's rigged. They rigged it. They
Yeah.
rigged it last year for Dallas. They,
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
yeah,
I didn't think about it in that sense. But at the end of the day, we got Curry in the playoffs, we got LeBron in the playoffs, we got KD in the playoffs. I don't think that's happened for, a while, right? So this is great
yeah,
to
and
see
we
stars
really
back in
need
the
to,
playoffs.
yeah, we really need to appreciate seeing those guys in the playoffs because you know all three of them, they're getting old. Their
True
time's gonna be
James
coming to an end
Harden.
very soon.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, and Harden too.
yeah.
All those guys, like this could be the final dance for all of them. So we
True.
got to really appreciate and just, I mean, I'm gonna be cheering for all of them. Hopefully,
Yeah.
one of them can, really win a
It would
championship.
definitely be
Hopefully,
cool to see the Warriors pull out, And I think they will, honestly, that they got a solid group, but I mean, who knows? They've been
yeah,
playing up and down basketball. Really, it's when the Curry's on the floor is when they go crazy. So, we'll see
yeah,
what happens with that. But I'm just like you said, grateful to see these guys on the floor for as many more games as they have under their belt in playoffs. Because who knows? Today or Tuesday could be the last game that they ever play on the basketball court when it comes to playoff basketball. So who knows? But what I do know is the Thunder are en route to possibly get a repeat. So when we round out this show here, we're going to be talking about how this Thunder team can repeat and what they need to do in order to kind of accomplish that goal, right? It's going to be obviously a difficult task. Your favorite is obviously the San Antonio Spurs, and that's an absolute great take. And I truthfully, like I told you, is the team that really scares me the most when it comes to matching up against this Thunder team because of what they've done against them in the regular season, but also Victor Wembanyama is an absolute alien, and I think that he is going to be the
Yeah,
face of in the NBA here soon. Obviously, we have Shea, who's doing fantastic things with the 20-point streak. But at the end of the day, what Victor Wembanyama does is absolutely ridiculous. And we have never seen a human being do the things that he is doing. I mean, the things that I see on the daily basis, the highlights that you see that go fly under the radar. You watch, like I go in and I watch, the game highlights at the end of the night. The shit that I see is
yeah.
unreal. And
Well,
it's
like being
just
that big and being able to hit like a
I
step
mean,
back
there was
three,
a
it's
there
just
was a
insane.
play lat 2 nights ago I watched, and he's at the top of the key. And I was telling this to my friend the other day. He's at the top of the key with his back turned to the basket, and he does a one dribble spin move and steps one time and dunks it from the free throw line, and literally
Yeah,
doesn't even jump off the floor. And I'm just like, what am I watching? What am I watching? Who can guard that? And nobody can guard that. But at the end of the
right.
day, that is the reason why this San Antonio Spurs team is where they are right now and why they are favored in many people's eyes to take out the Oklahoma City Thunder is because of what they did. Now, I will say that we weren't 100% healthy when they were taking um, you know, almost sweeping us this season. But at the end of the day, we did have 95% of our roster. And, when we do have all these pieces together, hopefully it makes a difference between Hartenstein and Chet and having J Dub back. But at the end of the day, I think the San Antonio Spurs team does have depth, like you were lamenting too. But what is the biggest thing? I think personally for me, the biggest key for them to repeat this season is Jared McCain. I think that in
I was
order
gonna say that too.
I think that in order for them to apologies, guys, we got cut off talking too much ball knowledge here on Zoom, so we had to not redo it, but get another episode going, and then we're gonna go ahead and finish up this episode. But like I was saying, I think Jared McCann is really the key to success for Oklahoma City in their back-to-back run. It's going to be tough. Like you and many others have the Spurs to be favored as we speak in the Western Conference, and that is not something that I honestly think too highly of because obviously I'm a Thunder fan. But at the end of the day, I respect it, and it's something like I told you guys. It's they they scare us the most. But Jared McCann, I think, is the big focal point in this and being able to overcome the Spurs or whoever comes in their way. I think him coming off the bench really has been so pivotal. It doesn't really matter what minutes he gets. He's going out and doing a great job with the minutes that he has and being extremely efficient, whether it's shooting the ball or whether it's dishing the ball or whether it's being on defense. I think that all aspects of his game are really pivotal and have been played right into the Oklahoma City Thunder kind of, regime and what they do over there at their organization and fit in right with their scheme. And I think he just dropped into play, obviously, with the chemistry and how he kind of has been the same age as all those guys, and obviously having the young core with Shea, Dub, and everybody else, Chet. So he fit right in. And I think a lot of people think, well, he should be a starter. And I completely agree with that. But I think that at this point in time, this late in the season, and also to add to that, being able to be so efficient in the minutes that he has off the bench, I don't think that you want to take that away and remove. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And I think that, to be honest, he eventually will be a starter for us in the future. But I think that at this point in time, especially coming in later in the season and coming off an injury, earlier on, I think that this is a perfect role for him and not too much pressure for him. That's why he's flourishing, I think, so much. But what do you think as far as what needs to be, or what is the biggest, um, I guess, focal point and what needs to be a repeat for the Thunder this year?
I do agree with you about Jared McCain. That was a huge get for the Thunder that really could put them over the top in this series. I don't understand that trade at all for the Sixers. They got one first round pick, like one late first round pick basically for Jared McCain. Like I
Yeah.
don't understand why they would do that. But I think that they're going to really need Jared McCain's points off the bench
Hmm.
at some point in the series. Because the thing is, San Antonio's bench can match Oklahoma City's bench. One of the things where Oklahoma City stands out against every other team is the depth, right? You got Aaron Wiggins and Cason Wallace and all these other guys off the bench. But San Antonio also has other guys like Dylan Harper and Keldon Johnson that come off the bench that
No
can
chance.
kind of counteract that. And so
Hmm.
that's why like Jared McCain is going to play a huge role in this. Um, just like guys like Champagne and
Yeah.
Keldon Johnson are for San Antonio. It's gonna be a great series. I think that like that series will go
And another
seven.
little
And
interesting nugget to add to that is McCann's never played against the Spurs. So it's going to be
yeah,
interesting to see how they game plan against him and obviously having a different kind of like orientation of what they're going to do, obviously going through Victor. But now Dub is back. They're going to have both bigs on the floor, especially when Chet or when Wemby's on the floor. So it's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see, obviously not that excited, but I'm excited to see, how it kind of, plays out in the sense of the basketball world. Because I think that we have a bunch of matchups this year that are just the start of something new, right? We got, Lonzo or LaMelo in, the playoffs for the first time. We got Wemby in the playoffs for the first time. We obviously got the old heads that are all in the playoffs at the same time for the first time in a while. But I think that also too, like you were talking about the Sixers having some up and coming, but I don't know what they're gonna do with Embiid, but I think that they still have a lot to look forward to in their organization. And I know it's not looking too great, obviously, because it feels like the same thing. It's repetitive year after year after year. But I think that with Maxi and the crew and VJ Edgecombe, I think that they will be just fine. I think that they will be, it's really just the decision of what they want to do with Embiid. But my point to all of this is there's so many different, new faces in the playoffs this year, and I think that this is great for the NBA to be able to get new faces to be able to be in front of these, fans, so called, right? Because I think that it's been a tough year for the NBA to start the year to the end of the year. It's been one of those up and down years, and I think that this is a great time for playoff basketball. But like I just think I'm excited to see all these new guys, right? Whether it's either Paulo Banchero, right, over there, that obviously he had a great year last year in the playoffs too, but I think that it's another year of experience for him to be able to get into it, and we'll see what the Magic do. Do they make a run, right? I don't know, right? They're kind of like another sleeper that I think about in the Eastern Conference because it is so wide open, and they could be able to go on a run and win games because they have been there as well. I don't know. What do you think about Orlando?
yeah. I mean, I like
They
their
got
talent.
Desmond Bate on the trade too.
Yeah, like they've somewhat disappointed me this year, though. I think that they have more talent than
All
like
you gotta do is get in the
how
dance,
weak
though.
they've
You know what
done.
I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. I loved that Desmond Bain move for them,
Mhm.
and I thought he was a great fit on their team. But Paulo kind of took a little bit of a step back this year. I know that Franz missed some time, but so they haven't all really had time to gel together as much as they maybe could have. But you know, I'm really interested to watch their series. I think that that they have the talent to compete with anybody in the East, really. But
Mhm.
I mean, I would love to see them, you know, go, win the play-in tournament, go to Boston and win it, Boston. But I mean, I don't really see that happening. But I would love
Yeah.
to see that. I think it's going to be a good series, and I'm really looking forward to watching them.
Yep.
Definitely.
And to round it out before we start talking about some rookie of the year, let's see. No, actually, let's get into some rookie of the year. Let's get into some rookie of the year. But there's been great talent all throughout this season between Cooper Flag, Conkinipple, VJ Edgecombe, and many others. And honestly, personally, Cooper Flag is my Kia Rookie of the Year 20 for this year 2026. I mean, to be honest, he has really gone in. I mean, surpassed all of expectations, I think, for many people. I mean, obviously, people knew how good he was coming out of Duke, but I think that it's even been more than what people could expect. I think that having the stats that he has and being able to be that formidable on the defensive side of the ball has been really my surprise. I obviously knew that he was a scorer and he could score the basketball. Um, And I knew that at some point in time he was going to get a rhythm and it was going to be very evident that he was going to be a presence, especially when he drives to the rack. I mean, just get out of the way. But I think that the defensive side of the ball for me specifically, it really has paid, um, you know, I guess dividends and why he has been the been the rookie of the year for me personally because of how many blocks that he has and the rebounds and points and all that stuff is going to come. But a fantastic year. And then VJ Edgecombe was really in the running for that too. I mean, at one point in time, VJ Edgecombe was my rookie of the year before, Cooper started just going absolutely ballistic towards the end of the season. But VJ Edgecombe, a fantastic year. And then obviously Con Knipple. I can't remember the last time there's been like a three-headed monster like this of like rookies, right? I mean,
Right.
there's obviously been great rookies and great, races to get the rookie of the year, but nothing like this. Can you recall something where, there's been this many rookies where you're like, they're going to be bona fide rookies, especially, and don't mean to gloss over Concanibal, but breaking the rookie record for 3 pointers. I mean, in the scene and almost having, but no, he did have this season the most threes this season for anybody, right? Yeah, was it one more than Lamelo or something like that?
Yeah.
Unreal. But yeah, no, I was just saying like, um, who is your rookie of the year this season?
First of all, I think that all three of like I haven't really seen anything like this because I think that all three of these guys are like potential superstar level scorers, and so I really think that it's a very talented rookie class at the top. After that, it's kind of falls off a little bit, but
Hmm.
those three definitely for sure. If you would have asked me a month ago, I probably would have said Con Knipple. But the past month, Cooper Flag has really stat padded. Like, he's taken a ton of shots, and the thing is, he's become a lot more efficient. Earlier in
Right.
the season, he was missing a lot of threes. He's really fixed his shot up a little bit, and like you were saying about his defense, he has the size and the athleticism to really be able to almost guard 1 through 5.
Hmm.
I'm not going to say he's like a defensive player of the year level talent yet, but like I wouldn't be surprised if he got to that point eventually. And like Khan Knipple, his impact on winning is why I understand why people would choose him because Charlotte has been the bottom feeders in the NBA for a long time, and he gets there, and now they're in the play-in tournament, and they look good, and everyone
Yeah,
like thinks they definitely have a chance. But I think that if you're looking at the numbers, and it should be Cooper Flag.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I think so too. But all these rookies have had a fantastic season. I wouldn't be surprised if any of them, pull a rabbit out of their hat and manage to win the rookie of the year this season. But at the end of the day, I do think that it's all said and done, really, and it is Cooper Flags to lose, or really, it's the committees to just throw away at this point in time because there's no more basketball to be played. But
right.
at the end of the day, fantastic season for Cooper Flag, and I'm really hoping that that manages to be the case. And we'll get into some play-in predictions before we round out and end this episode. I appreciate you, Jaden, again for joining and taking your time out of tonight and talking some ball with me, man. It's the first time I've had somebody on the podcast, and so it's fun to be able to just ramble and not have to do it for an hour and a half where it's just my voice. So I
Oh
appreciate you,
yeah, thank you
brother.
for having me, bro.
Of course, brother. Of course.
Oh
And
yeah,
we're gonna do this again, no worries. So,
oh
but
yeah.
let's start in the Western Conference. As we got the Clippers and the Warriors, who do we got there? Obviously, the play-in works where you're not eliminated immediately unless you're the 10 seed in the 10 and 9 matchup. But who do we got in the Clippers and the Warriors matchup?
I think the Clippers are going to win that one. Kawhi has been really good this year when he's played, and
Mhm.
they added Garland,
Really shouldn't be
who
the play-in
has
if you ask me.
yeah, like and Garland and Benedict Mathurin, those two guys have really started to build chemistry with Kawhi, and those two guys are really good scorers in their own right. So I think that they just have too much talent
Hmm.
compared to Golden State,
Yeah.
just because like I mean Curry's on a minutes restriction, and
That's what I was just about to say. And with
yeah,
Curry's minutes
so
restriction, it's going to be tough. I also do have the Clippers there. I'm really rooting for the Warriors, but I do think it'll be Clippers that prevail in that matchup. Now we got
yeah,
Suns
me too.
and the Blazers. This is going to be an interesting matchup as well. I got a boy on the Suns team, Jamari Bouye, who will be playing in his first playoff game on an actual roster. So that's gonna be awesome to see. But then also too, we got a great young talent on the Blazers side with Denny Advia, and I'm interested to see him playing some first time playoff basketball. It's always a different atmosphere, right? And I don't think that the average fan really understands that. They're like, oh, it's the playoffs. Blah, blah, blah. No, it's actually really interesting to see these guys be in a different atmosphere and how they perform because this is really the telltale sign of who they are and the identity. But at the end of the day, the Suns and Blazers, who do you got in this matchup?
I think the Suns are going to win. But I think that a key for Portland is Shaden Sharp recently just came back, and he's a good player. He still building up his minutes, but I think he could definitely be a key. I just think that Booker and Jalen Green and Mark Williams, I think that they just Phoenix has a little bit too much. They're just a little bit better than Portland, so
Not to
I'll pick
mention,
Phoenix in
Bouye
that
just had
series.
his 27 points against OKC the other night, his
Hell
fucking
yeah.
career high. So coming off the bench, I think Jamari would be cool as well as, obviously the key with Booker being back into the fold and really the centerpiece of this team. And I don't think that happened in a while. And I think when Booker is the centerpiece of a team, I think that you can obviously rally behind that because he has brought you to a finals before. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing every year with the Suns. Can they defend? And I'm not sure about that, right? And it's
Right.
always been that. And so I'm just gonna be watching to see if they can possibly prevail because I think it's been a couple years since they've been in the playoffs, right? Or 1 year absence, I
Yeah.
believe. But at the end of the day, Denny Avdia, first time in the playoffs too, so that's going to be interesting. Now let's go to the Eastern Conference as we got the Hornets in the playoffs for the first time with Melo Ball and facing off against the play-in demons in the Heat, the Miami Heat. So who do you got there?
Well, I'm cheering for the Hornets is the thing. Like I like the story, and I really like what they've shown recently, and just
Mhm.
the team they've become since Colin Knippel got there and Diabate got in the starting lineup. But like you were saying, the Heat are demons, and if they have Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, I think that game specifically is going to be a really good game.
Yeah.
I'll give Charlotte the slight edge just because I want them to win, so I'll pick them. But
Could
I
be
mean, I
hard.
wouldn't
What
be
if Bam
surprised at all if
Adebayo
Miami
pulls out
won.
42 free throws and drops
Yeah,
83 points on you? I don't know. But
yeah,
no, I do hear you out there. I mean, I'm going to be rooting for the Hornets, obviously, but the type of basketball that the Heat play in the playoffs, and not to mention that I would say play in demons because they are seem to always be in the play in and always seem to prevail and win out and get into the playoffs and then somehow, some way lose in the playoffs for the first round. But
yeah.
they have been there and done that, and this is the first time in this type of atmosphere for the Hornets. Now, are they the 8 or 7 seed? Because if that is the case, then they have room to lose and be able to play in, they are the 9, so it's no room again. Yeah, that's the other thing about the Heat. They always seem to be in this 9-10 matchup in a backs against their wall game, and they always prevail. So
Yeah, well, I mean, they got Spoelstra, and
yeah,
sometimes you just got to bet on the better coach. So, I
exactly.
mean, I definitely wouldn't be surprised if Miami won
Yeah, no, 100%. And then last but not least, in the last matchup that we'll be discussing is the Sixers will be facing off against the Orlando Magic. I mean, so what do you got here? Obviously, we talked a little bit about the Magic, and a little bit about the Sixers. But it's going to be an interesting matchup. I don't necessarily know if the Sixers or the Magic have their identity figured out this late in the season. So it's going to be kind of just a basketball game if I can describe it in that sense where it's like both of these teams have been up and down all year long and they're just looking for a new identity and maybe this is it, right? Being in the play in and being able to have room to lose a couple games to be able to be in the playoff. I don't know, who do you got here?
I think that even with Embiid out, I'm going to take the Sixers here. I think that, there's definitely a case to be made that Maxi's the best player in this series or in this game on from both
Yeah.
sides. And I'm a huge VJ Edgecombe believer. And then, Paul George has been playing better, and they got Kelly Oubre. They got some pieces for sure. And I don't trust the Magic because like they've been disappointing all year, and they haven't really shown that chemistry. And Like going into this season, I thought that Orlando was going to be like a top three seed in the East,
Hmm.
and being eighth, it's just really disappointing. And I know that they had Franz be injured and all that, but I feel like I trust Tyrese Maxey more, so I'm gonna take the Sixers.
I agree. I agree there. I think the Sixers could prevail here. I just think it could really be a toss up if, you get Bane getting hot or, you manage to. I don't know personally who's going to be able. If Paulo Banchero can be Paulo Banchero and not necessarily think about what had happened this season with like not having the greatest season, I think it'd be a problem. It's a mismatch. I don't really know who's going to be able to guard Paulo Banchero if Embiid's not on the floor, right? So who knows? I do think that VJ Edgecombe will play an absolute pivotal role, especially with the experience of Paul George in the playoffs. But I do think that the Sixers will prevail. I just don't think that they're going to be able to win the next, round or anything like that. But
Yeah,
at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting. We got the play in tomorrow, man. I'm excited. I'm excited. Are you excited to watch some freaking basketball finally?
yeah, I'm really excited just because of how bad the end of the regular season was for the NBA.
Hmm.
Like there was, I saw a stat. There was something like the average margin of victory on one of those days was like 22 points, which is like so stupid. Like I think that I'm really excited for these playoffs because I think they're going to be good games, and I just want to see
Not to mention the tweet I
really
sent
good
you.
basketball
It was
again.
like 8 teams that finished with 55 plus wins or 55 plus losses or more, first time in
Yeah,
NBA history. You can't have that, right? You can't have
yeah,
that. And I think that tanking is obviously something that is going to be a part of every single organ sports, um, league. But at the end of the day, having 8 teams finish above, what was it, 60% losing? I mean, that's not okay. I mean,
yeah.
think about it, guys. It's 82 games in the season and they're losing more than 55 plus games. It's more than 75% damn near. So it's not okay. You want to see some competitive basketball, and I think that's part of it, right? I think that you need to have more competitive teams in the NBA, and that brings up the ratings. But not to mention the fact that it is already hard to watch NBA as it is. So I think that's all part of it. But we'll get into it in a different episode. But I appreciate you, Jay, of joining me in this first special edition episode where we're breaking down all things basketball because the playoffs are here, y'all. Go ahead and kick up your feet, watch some playoff basketball, tune into some great competitive basketball that's going to be played here throughout this entire 3 months. You know how many people complain about the NBA playoffs being so damn long. Well, enjoy it because it's here, and the play-in starts tonight with those matchups that we discussed. But me and Jay will be back here soon. I'll be back, obviously, with some more banter podcasts. But again, guys, go ahead and shoot Jay a little follow on his, socials and stuff of that nature and follow him up on, what you can and give him some support because he does know his ball. And at the end of the day, I appreciate you joining me on this special edition episode of Jay's Point After. So
Hell
appreciate
yeah, thank you, brother.